what I thought was, there might be people here that didn't know anything about you before, you being here before, so I thought it'd be good just to introduce yourself and then talk about how you ended up here this time.
Okay. So my name is Matthew de Kersaint Giraudeau, which you do all know because I've met you all, but I'm an artist and I have made art for a long time and I make lots of different kinds of art. But the important thing for this show is that about 3 years ago I started to teach art, so I got a job at a university, and I also had my first daughter who's called Ray. And those things really changed what kind of art I could make. And this exhibition really is a product of having to really reorient myself in the world and in my practice about what's possible, I think.
And this isn't the first time you've been in Donegal and then shown in Fort Dunree, is it?
No, so this work here is a good one to look at because this it was 2019, wasn't it?
Yep.
So in 2019 I came to Artlink and had a studio up in here in Fort Dunree, and then I travelled around a bit, not too far, just in Donegal, looking at high crosses and standing stones, chatted to people like John and other people who knew their stuff about the history of the area, to try and get a sense of, I guess I'm interested in this particular bit of history that's pre-Christian conversion, and then how there's traces of that last through early Christianity and kind of carry on till today. And actually this character, the Green Man, his head was based on, I think, what's the most northerly point? Is that Malin Head?
Malin Head, yeah.
Yeah, so we went to Malin Head and me and my girlfriend, we were walking along the cliffs, and just there was a big mossy mound and someone had just put 3 stones in. Oh no, a load of stones in to make a smile as well. And I took a photo and just thought it was such a great little bit of like contemporary folk art. But I've been looking into the Green Man, who's one of these characters, which I'll explain, but he's kind of one of these characters that seems to be a symbol of pre-Christian. He kind of appears all over Europe, really. So I did this drawing on the computer, and I was animating him, and I was animating other characters as well. And the idea was, in 2019, that I was going to come back in 2020 or 2021 and do an exhibition based on lots of all these characters being animated. But then COVID happened, and then in 2021 is when I got a job and had a baby and stuff like that. So this is obviously now we're having the exhibition, and this is the remnant of the pre-COVID past, when this is what I was going to do. And so this work is called In Lieu of the Work, and it's actually an explanation of why actually that work didn't really get made, because I didn't have funding and I didn't have time and I just had a new baby and stuff like that.
So could you talk a wee bit about the specific nature of your approach to animation, because I think that's quite interesting.
Oh, okay, yeah. So who was I talking to about animation yesterday? So what normal animation, old school animation, is frame by frame. You draw one frame, and then you draw the next frame, and then you create movement through those frames being like run, as frames of film. But this is called vector animation. And what that means is that there are frames, because it's a video, so it gets rendered out as frames. But essentially, the choices I make are like just keyframes. I say I want this limb to move here within a certain time, and then the computer just tracks that for you. And more this is, like animation is technically made this way, but it produces a very particular look, which is this kind of jerky, I'm sure there's experts who can make it look really good, but it produces this kind of jerky, quite high definition, because it uses vector graphics. So that vector graphics are graphics that are very crisp and, again, not based on pixels, but rather on directions, vectors. And I really like the ugliness of it, the way it's kind of jerky and wrong and all a bit out of sorts. And that, again, is connected, to my wider interest in art that also rejects modern notions of the beautiful. So again, it links back into my interest in kind of early medieval period, when art had a variety of roles, and only part of its role was to be something lovely to look at. Often it was serving a purpose within religion to tell a story or something. Yeah. It reminds me really of the early internet, of like Flash graphics, you know, this very particular kind of internet animation that didn't require much. They were very small files that you could put on the internet. And they've been superseded now because we can put video on the internet really easily. But there's a particular look that I like about them that's jerky and a bit wrong. But this is the more advanced version of it. Like, this is all motion tracked. The face is me chattering away, and then with my eyes moving and stuff. But it produces this very basic animation.
And you subtitled it because, why have you subtitled it? Oh, oops.
This is great, it's a filmed talk. Hang on, I'm just going to do a costume change. So that's a really performative demonstration of what I'm interested in, which is, so all the audio is me walking around a field just after my second daughter was born this year, talking into my headphones, you know, talking into my phone basically. And I did edit it slightly, but what I really wanted to capture was someone trying to think aloud. And the subtitles, you can see, almost none of them are complete sentences. They're all fragments, they're all bitty, they're all digressions off digressions over and over again. And I think what subtitles do, I did lots of subtitling for a work in 2021, and lots of that was like kind of funny, you know, humorous performance. And it both like underlined the fact that it was meant to be funny and also kind of made it less funny. And I think subtitles, they obviously have a use, right? They're about accessibility. But they also end up forcing everyone to read at the same time as listen. And I quite like that. It's the same with that work over there, which is called Minor Work, which is subtitled, and then the audio is whispered. Also, the audio quality of this is very low. It's not very good because it's recorded on a phone. What
about the cityscape?
That's all just free stock material that I got off the internet. A lot of it is AI generated, actually. And I get that I have access to that through my work. They give you an account. But it's just quite ugly, and I can't really imagine anyone using it seriously. But I like using what's close to hand. Yeah. Like this, you know, same with the sculptures, right? It's all just stuff that I could buy. I'm not often looking for the professional version of something. Yeah. You know, you could probably pay to get really high quality stock footage of a cityscape moving past, but I'm not interested in that.
Yeah. And it's gradually disappearing as well. Does anybody else want to chat about that at all, or? It is, yeah, I like that kind of, that rough kind of wild nature character in front of the, you know, I'm assuming it's kind of London, or maybe it's nowhere specific, maybe it's just some modern city.
It's just nowhere, yeah, it's just meant to be modernity. He comes down from the mountains. It's like Friedrich Nietzsche or something. Yeah. He comes down from the mountains and he's meant to be telling you everything. Yeah. But, you know, he gets more hunched over, and then by the time he gets to the city, he's running along. Yeah. He's being rushed along by the modern world. Pardon?
He's been rushed on by the city, by the change of...
Yeah, exactly,
place.
It's a good contrast. Putting something like that, even an idea of folk art in a modern context.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I've seen about a Joker, a big clown's feet, and the run all came from the feet. Yeah. You know, it's big shoes off, he's still there. Yeah. These and sort of remember this gate, you know?
Yeah. Well, again, that's a product of me not being brilliant at the animation. So it's a walk cycle that you can program in. Yep. But because the way I've drawn him is very uneven and asymmetrical, he's kind of lopsided and his hips extend too much, and his running goes out too far. But again, that's all stuff that's really nice, because then you end up creating this character. You know, he's got his own life in him, isn't he?
Yeah, Rebecca observed when we came in before we started the discussion about us in a circle and that he's part of the circle, because you've made it a sculpture. It's, even though we're talking about the image, it's not just an image that you look through. You've actually created a sculpture with the video monitor and the way that you positioned it in the space. I mean, why didn't, like, it would have been so simple just to slap it on a wall like most people and then you're just looking through it.
Yeah.
But you've made it an object rather than just a device to show your piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to this interest in standing stones and high crosses, which have imagery on them, but are obviously sculptures. And I just really like the idea that you can walk around it, and that, you know, if I'd had loads and loads of money, I can imagine a circle of them, right? And then all these characters are talking to each other across the circle. But it's also just, I really like the idea that when it's in a gallery, video does become a sculpture. It becomes something that you walk around and look at from different angles, and then you walk away and you might hear it tinkling away in the background. And it has this ambient quality. You know, it's not a film, it's not something that people, I mean, if people wanted to stand and watch 45 minutes of it, they're welcome, but it's much more meant to be like absorbed in the way that you would, you know, walking around these... Performance or just even, you know, going to these places where the high crosses are, or the, you know, they're landscapes that you walk around and you kind of go and look at it for a bit, and then you look the other way, and then you go and, you know, look at a bit of ruins of an old church or whatever it is, and then you come back again. And exhibitions are like that, aren't they? You absorb them rather than really focusing on them. Yeah. And I think that's why the only medium that I don't really use is painting, even though I'm happy to make big drawings and other imagery. And I think that's because painting does want this sense of, you stand in front of the painting, you look at it, you take it all in, then you move on to the next one, and you do that. Yeah. Whereas it's nice with an exhibition like this, you have these different levels. And Rebecca was saying that she's got some kids coming in on Thursday. And I like the idea that they're going to be closer to the sculptures. So this, you know, because otherwise adults have to bend down, and most adults wouldn't, you know. Yeah. But I like this idea of making people stoop and making them look in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely my favourite is the sculptures. I really like just how, like, initially they just look really kind of quite playful first when you just come in, and the fact that they're on the boxes, the baby white boxes, which are kind of clouds, you know, like clouds, like little dreams, do you know what I mean? Like, especially when you're sat, because I've just been sat down like this for a while, so I've noticed the clouds more. But now, they look kind of like Laputa castle in the sky. Like, these are all the little, like, dream worlds that are existing in the sky. The kind of like little fantasy worlds that only the select few can see.
I didn't even notice the clouds.
Yeah.
I just turned them over because it's a more plain, you know, it's white and black rather than having all the writing on. But yeah, that's great. Like, they're floating along.
Yeah.
I see them with footprints from the Green Man.
Oh, yeah.
Ah, right, yeah.
Where you stamp his...
Yeah.
Maybe he's turned in luck or something, you know.
Yeah, I was quite interested in, like, you're a male artist doing stuff not about fatherhood, but it's not.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
And obviously there's a history of feminist artists trying to make visible the invisible labour. You know, the fact is, obviously, you know, women's work in the home, that's been the whole issue, and from the 60s on, of making visible that invisible labour, something that was never even acknowledged as labour.
Yeah.
And you're entering that territory here. It's really interesting because it's not something that you see very often a male artist doing.
Yeah, I think the artist that I always think of is, do you know Miele Lederman Ukeles? No. She's an American artist, and she invented this thing that she called maintenance art. And the most famous example that she did was she proclaimed herself artist in residence of the New York Sanitation Department. So the people who collect the bins and, you know, do all that stuff. And I think it was called touch sanitation or something like that. She shook every garbage man. Is that the phrase? Yeah, every garbage man's hand in the city. Because as almost like a recognition of the incredible, importance of something that goes on underneath the surface and that is pure maintenance. It's you know, in different cultures, like it's the lowest job, isn't it? Collecting rubbish. But if you didn't have that, you'd be like overwhelmed, like society just wouldn't function at all. So I think that's really interesting. Just to go back to the feminist thing of motherhood and stuff, she when she had her children, she declared that everything she did was now a work of art. And that was as a result of not being able to make art in a more kind of standard way. And I think I really took inspiration from that in the sense that, you know, like I couldn't make the film in the way that I would have made it before I had kids. I just don't have the time to sit down and do, you know, animation is very labour intensive, and I wanted to work with different performers, and that would have involved a lot of time and workshopping and stuff. And it's the same with sculpture, right? Sculpture often, I mean, not my sculpture, but lots of people's sculpture involves coming up with an idea, making maquettes of it, and then making these bigger things that have to be made out of very durable material, especially if you're thinking about something that might last hundreds of years, like something that might exist outside. So what happens when you no longer have the ability to do that? And I found that if Miele Lederman Ukeles and a lot of the feminist artists of the 1970s were saying production is foregrounded, but what that makes invisible is all the maintenance that supports that, and that being lots of reproductive labour and lots of different kinds of unpaid labour that happens in order for labour to happen. My feeling was that something that's important as a political statement, but the opposite is also true, that whenever you're maintaining something, you're also producing something. And that's really obvious when you're doing childcare. I had some images that I pulled up on my laptop. I won't show them, but one of them, you know, all of these moments when you're looking after children, young children is my area, but it must happen, you know, if you're caring for anyone or doing anything. We've got a new baby and she like produces a lot of poo, like feces, and obviously she's in nappies, and we don't have a nappy bin. We've just got a wheelie bin outside the front because we can just open the door and put it in the wheelie bin. But overnight, I don't go downstairs and like put them in the bin straight away. So we collect all these nappies, you know, and it can be up to like 10 nappies. And then in the morning, I throw them down the stairs and land them in front of the door. And that's my little game. And then I realized that every day I was making a new composition of pooey nappies down at the door, and I started taking photos of them. And it's like, obviously, that's just a chore. I'm just trying to make a chore more fun. But if you just spend time noticing these things, or if you like allow yourself to notice these things, you realize that every moment you're producing new stuff. You know, my daughter went through a phase of like throwing all of her food on the floor. And I don't know if there's any of that in the collages actually. But yeah, like up here is a load of strawberry tops on a yogurt wrapper or something. And just realizing that you're like, all of these things that could be formless, they are waste, they are formless, they are things that are being discarded, but they are also little moments of creativity or creation, but like the minimal form of it, like what's the least that you could do to create a piece of art? Well, you just give your 2-year-old a load of rice and see what patterns she makes on the floor. I don't know how that all changes as they get older. It will be a different thing, I suppose. Who was saying? Oh, you were saying, Alison, right? Like when you have teenagers, they're suddenly so funny. They'll make you laugh.
Yeah, I was going to say that, I get that about completely sort of empathise with the New York one, what you're saying, but when you have children and you're still constantly being creative and constantly producing, but maybe not to this sort of, you know, typical form, but it's all still there. So I think what happens, or how I felt it has been for me in a way, is that you become stronger parts in that creativity.
Mm.
And so they then, the interaction's more, and it's growing and developed, and they bring all their stuff to it, and so everything changes, and even physically how you move changes and everything as well. But it just continues on and becomes more empowered when they're older somehow, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I worked at a farmer years ago. This is going back to the very basic of, I used to say, if you lined up on the tractors and what have you, and I used to say, what's your big word for the day? What's your big word for the day? What's your, the way you go along the line, it's on the same barn lead or just about, it was a lot of fun, but it took you out of the hard work and get a sense of humour in it,
Yeah.
It was like a wee bit of art,
Yeah, of course. But you just don't name it normally, do you? You just do it, and then you forget it and you go on with your day. And
then you think about it.
Yeah.
Why did they do that?
Yeah.
Or it shows up somewhere else in another form.
Right.
You connect it together and you go, oh, that's what that is. And,
Yeah.
that's how I spot it or something, identify it.
Yeah. I always like, there's another work I did years ago called Acceptable Blockages, which is loads of photos of kind of street furniture, roadworks, where they're blocking something off. And often they're using these preset bits of equipment, like barriers and bollards and tape and stuff. But and obviously those people are doing a job and they have to create that space for safety and of course that's very important, but that's creative, isn't it? You're making a little monument to a certain space. It's just a kind of minimal form of it, I suppose. There are some really amazing creations, or over COVID times, that was amazing. Like the amount of tape that people would use to like wrap up I don't know if you got it in Ireland, but they were stopping people going on swings and stuff. You couldn't go on the park.
Oh, yeah.
They would sometimes they'd totally wrap up the swings in tape to stop people going on.
That's interesting.
For the queue.
Just stretch it out so you're all standing in a kind of tent for a while. And sometimes we just really lovely.
My favourite memory of COVID is around the baseball one night. It was a Thursday night, and see the town Derry completely deserted. Not a pigeon, not a yard. And I got photographs, and it started freaking me out. I got all weird, And then I was listening to the radio a few days later, and a guy in Oldham saying the same thing. He says, get out now, and you never get the chance again.
Yeah.
Experience this, and it was not a good experience of what happened in life,
Yeah.
These streets were just completely, you looked, couldn't see another person.
Yeah. I did the same thing. I was over COVID, I was resident artist in this studios that's in northwest London, and I live in southwest London, so it's about 9 miles away. And I didn't really want to get on the tube because it's meant to just be for essential workers. And this is right at the start, that period of time that you're talking about. So I'd ride through, and my ride took me through the South Bank, and then I'd go over one of the big bridges, and then I think I ended up going past Buckingham Palace, all of these landmarks of London, and it's just totally deserted. It was amazing. But it didn't last long. That period was really short. And then all the builders came back to work. So everything started coming back, and you see people.
People off the streets now, the whole thing was swept up.
Yeah.
There was no humanity.
Yeah.
It's interesting that invisible work that you're talking about, the maintenance and stuff like that, and there's quite a bit of kind of writing and discussion about that now. And we were working with Patrick Mahoville, and he introduced us to this artist whose practice now they're working on this project which they've called compost. And so basically what they've done is they've said, I've made enough stuff now. I'm just going to take all the stuff I've made so far, every drawing, every scribble, every sketch, every note, everything that I've already got, and basically compost it. So basically like the way you sort out your rubbish, you put the recycling things into the recycling.
Well, that's what, so the Green Man, there's this medievalist called Ronald Hutton, and he's written several things about the Green Man, but he basically debunked the notion that there was this single pre-Christian figure of the Green Man. That was really an invention of the 19th century. This like lots of people who were really interested in pre-Christian culture, and the Green Man figure, like his head often appears in Christian churches, disgorging like leaves, and is widely understood to be a symbol of the harvest or a symbol of summer or a symbol of the turning over the seasons. And that's probably just true, but just being able to observe it through that. But what this I can't remember her name, she was like an aristocrat, historian. She tried to turn it all into this single pre-Christian deity that was almost like I think sometimes he's referred to as like the husband of the green goddess. There's these various almost like spiritualist interpretations of them. But essentially it's the notion that he embodies the cycle of life, of birth and death, and of the seasons changing and stuff. But I think that's really interesting, even if it's not as Ronald Hutton kind of shows it. It's probably not true that every single instance of the Green Man is referring back to this one deity. But there's so many, folk traditions. In that I talk about the Bury Man. Have you guys seen the Bury Man? No. It's like a guy they parade around in somewhere in England, and they cover him in thistles. It's the time of year when the thistles are growing, and they cover this guy in thistles. I think you have to give him whiskey or something. Or maybe I don't know where it is. But anyway, you have to give him whiskey. He visits your house and you give him a drink, and then he just gets pissed up and led around the town. But that's clearly referring to the changing of the seasons and how to mark it in some way. And I think that what I'm thinking about, and goes back to your point about ecology and permaculture and composting, trying to reuse things that are already there or something, is that, it's a human, what's the word? It's the curse of being human, maybe, is to always, even if you're trying to just refer to something else or to use what you've got, you always end up making something new. And that obviously, in many ways, is the biggest problem we face, is that we keep producing more stuff. But it's also pretty amazing. I don't know, yeah. Like wasteful, all of this waste, like all of the baby wipes I've used over the years, thousands of baby wipes that won't disintegrate for hundreds of years. Isn't that awful? But isn't it a monument to humanity? Yeah. Sorry, that's a really odd way of thinking, but I just came to think of the Green Man as more symbolising the way things just add up and stack up, and you can't stop. This artist you're talking about, yes, they're recycling what they've done, they're trying to sort out what they've done, but that will produce, even if they're only concepts or ideas or theoretical works of art, it will produce all of this new material that then they'll have to still process and deal with.
Yeah, it will. I was wondering about jumping away to something else, but I suppose it's connected. That this idea that maybe, so the other thing about the work is play, and that is part of it, that having your daughter, and she's almost 3 years old, that it's allowed you to kind of maybe just be quite naive in a way, like seeing things through her eyes and having that kind of wonder about the world. And you were talking about observing things. That's part of that thing that we kind of remember from being a 3-year-old, where everything's amazing, everything's new. So she's allowed you kind of to see everything new in a way.
Yeah,
is that part of it too?
I mean, that's obviously the beautiful thing about having kids, isn't it? Is that, or just young people around us, that they just obviously see the world totally in a different way. But what's the work? These works, there's two actually. This one's puffy stickers that I bought from the internet, and that one's Hey Dougie stickers, which is Ray's favourite cartoon. But when we first started playing with stickers, which are a very wasteful thing, these packs of stickers you get, and then you put them on bits of paper or whatever, and then they all fall off the cabinet you've put them on, and then you throw them away. Anyway, I would give her the stickers, and her first thing to do, she would never put them out on a bit of paper. She'd just stack them on top of each other. which is such an amazing thing to do with stickers. It like totally, it doesn't make any sense, but at the same time, it creates a totally different form.
Yeah.
So with that kind of thing, it's like, in a way, like your job there as a parent is to teach her, oh no, you can put them out and make a little scene, or you can arrange them in another way. But as an artist, you're like, oh yeah, cool, great, good idea.
But it's so lovely, that idea that she's your teacher.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, lots of them are just, you know, these hair clip ones. Obviously, they're quite formal. That's actually inspired by that one, this one, and this one, all kind of the same inspiration, which is oh man, I've forgotten his name now. There was a group in the 70s called the Artist Placement Group. Do you know them? John Latham and Barbara Stavini. They would place artists in industry or in businesses or organisations. And they often did quite social art, you know, like discursive stuff, political discussions and pamphlets and things. But there was one sculptor, and he made this amazing, huge sculpture out of, he was at a chair factory, and you know the bottom of like stackable chairs? He made a giant wheel that filled up the whole end of the factory floor. I can't remember his name, I have to find his name. And I just thought that was so nice that he just took this modular thing that's obviously part of modern life and just made this really, really formal sculpture out of them. So I just thought I'd make some out of, all these horrible disposable contact lens things. But there's lots of moments like that where, but the point was, these hair clips, again, it's just another thing that you have to do. At the end of the day, you take your hair clips out and stuff, and then you're like looking around, you're like, I don't want to lose these. So you like clip them together, or you clip the hair clips onto the hair bands, and you just create these little sculptures that you then have to obviously dismantle because you need to use them again. But it's great. She's always making loads of stuff. She's always producing something, even if it's just mess.
She made some of the ingredients for the collages as well.
That's right, yeah. So I've got we just have, we used to cover our whole table in paper and just let her draw in it. And now we just give her a big sketchbook and she just draws in it. And I'm trying to be really generous with the paper, because I always remember when I was a kid, my mum would always like give me like 2 sheets of paper, and I'm trying to give her like more paper, and then I'm stealing her work. So this is a drawing that she did. This is, you know, ink stamps. They have these little ink stamps of cartoon characters or, you know, shapes. So this is just a little ink stamp thing she did, and this is another one. And so in that, I don't know what the ethics of that are. I should maybe credit her or something, but she essentially made some of the work. And this as well. This is a picture of one of her towers of blocks that she made. And they're just really nice. And it's nice to include that, because they are pure. That's exactly the same as what an adult artist does. Like, it's not, it's not different at all. Like, sometimes she's drawing and my wife's like, oh, what's that, Ray? And she just looks at it and she's like, nothing, I'm just making marks. She's already got the distinction between abstraction and representation down in her own way.
What's with the foot everywhere?
Oh, right, yeah.
The horrible foot.
Yeah. So.
Especially that really pinky red.
Oh yeah, that's horrible. It's the flash went off, I think. Yeah.
I know, it's so raw, isn't it?
Scalded.
Well, I think that was just a bad lighting. So.
Okay, scalded your foot. Okay.
No, but they've all got a verruca on. And this can... The verrucas. So, okay, there's 2 elements to that. One is the idea of complaint. And the original work I was going to make about the Green Man and then these other old gods, these pre-Christian figures, was about them being resentful of, Christianity forgetting them, of modernity forgetting them. Of everyone forgetting them. They used to be these powerful figures who dominated the belief systems of huge societies, and then they just get washed away. And I just think it's really interesting the way people speak when they complain. Anyway, so I think that's interesting. I'm interested in the language of complaint. And then I got this verruca. Hey, yeah, you're right. Hey.
Is your mom in here?
I'm just talking about verrucas. Have you ever had a verruca? Have you ever had a verruca?
What's that? Yeah.
Like a thing on your foot. It hurts, doesn't it? But I was saying that you can complain about it, but you can't complain that much about it for two reasons. One is that it doesn't hurt that much. It's not that bad. And then two, people just find it absolutely disgusting. They think it's the most disgusting thing in the world. I was talking to my colleague. We like to complain. I'm an academic, so we like to complain. And she can be like, why did that man ask me about verrucas? So we like to complain. And she was complaining about her bunion. She had a bunion, which to me, I was like, oh, this is my chance to complain about my verruca. And then I started talking about my verruca. She looked at me and she's like, that's disgusting. I don't want to talk about that. It's like so unfair. A bunion is short. Anyway, the point being that a verruca is one of the ugliest things. Like, it makes me quite sick to look at the verruca when it's got like more than one little point. They really feel like quite disgusting things. But also you can't complain about them. But also they made me think about this thing of like producing, because obviously they're a virus and I wanted to get rid of it. You know, it's just, I went to someone and got it burnt off or whatever it is. But your body, in response to that virus, produces all this new material. It produces all this new skin and whatever. Like, so even at a moment where your like body is battling to get rid of something, to subtract, you're also producing loads more stuff, and all this virus is replicating, and you know, you can't get away from growth. And that idea of fecundity, right? It's positive in a way, but it also does contain this notion of like too much, like excess. And so that's really at the heart of the project, is had this verruca, and it got me thinking about all this stuff. But it does. I reckon I could sell the work if it wasn't for the verrucas.
Maybe just put a plaster over the verruca.
Well, actually, originally that's what I was going to do, because there's one.
You could put like the little kitty plasters.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Put the kitty plasters onto the verruca.
Well, I don't think it's just the verruca; it's the whole foot. I think is the problem.
Yeah.
You know, again, thinking about different.
People like feet.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a whole niche there.
Do I want them to be my sole audience, though, Rebecca? That's the question,
It's
isn't it?
something you're going to produce more. This is the end of the line.
So what about the use of aluminium?
Oh, here, listen, I'm going to scoot off.
Yeah, no worries.
Grout.
Yeah,
Sorry, continue on.
that's fine. Thanks for coming. Aluminium, I don't know. I always end up making things that are really hard to photograph, so that was the way I must have.
So you wanted it to be hard to photograph?
No, I just always subconsciously sabotage myself. I'd just come up with this idea that they would be on metal when I came up with the idea for the collages originally. But then actually what's nice about aluminium is that so this is just ink, the black spots, but all of the white stuff, that's that bazooka verruca gel. Do you know that? It's like the little acid thing that you put on the verruca.
Right.
And it creates this little paste and then reacts with the metal and creates this white substance. And then on this one over here, it's silver nitrate, which is another thing that you can put on verrucas.
Silver nitrate? That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get these little pens that you kind of rub on the wart. But yeah, I just liked it. And I wanted to work with something, actually talking about legacy, I wanted to work with something that might last a bit longer. And so I got all the photographs are printed on like archival photographic, decent photographic paper. And this metal's a bit stronger and harder. Because there is something about, these things, some of these sculptures will last for years and others will just fall apart and I'll have to throw them away. I've still got sculptures I've made out of food from about 10 years ago that are still fine because they're made out of like marshmallow, which like never degrades. But yeah, I just was thinking about how to make something a bit more permanent. I don't know why I chose it actually.
It's interesting.
To do with the children. It's like new and shiny and stuff, and it's going to last and everything. Do you know?
Yeah.
And it's very light.
And it's like when I'm standing looking at the one with the gold on it, and from here, that's the thing, it gets transformed by its position in the room or what room it's in. It's the only material, because it's the product of what's around it. So that just looks like a piece of white card at the minute from where I'm standing. It looks the same tone as the wall.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that I like the fact that it's kind of, I hate the idea of photographing it, but but I like the fact that it's transforming itself all the time.
Yeah.
Depending on what's going on in the sky outside and who's walking past and.
Reflects back the environment.
Well, Andy Warhol did those in his kind of later career. He did some stuff on metal, didn't he? Where he covered it in a certain acid and then did a wee on it, or got other people to do a wee on it. And it does. You can, if you look at certain lights, you can see like thumbprints and stuff on it. And I'm kind of debating whether I need to keep those clean or whether it's important to like let it get kind of mucky over the years or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's a new material, so I'm just getting to grips with it.
So this work. I don't like the idea of work in progress, but is this work this body of work here finished now? This is just at a stage of getting it out of the studio, being able to see it, because obviously when you're working in this kind of scale, you probably don't get to see the work till it's in a gallery space. Is this just a moment in the middle of it, and it's going to be seen somewhere else in a different way?
Yeah, I mean,
are there plans to do that?
We put it up. Yeah, well, I've got another show coming up in November, but there's an artist called Kate Mackerson who's a friend, and she came and spoke to my students, and she said 70% of the work is done in the studio, and then 30% of it's done in the show, in the exhibition, and everyone will have their own percentages. But we were putting it up yesterday, and I think originally I'd thought these would be in like groupings, like pairs or threes, but actually, after a bit of discussion between us, we thought actually they need to just be evenly spaced, which allows you to look at them one by one on their own. And that decision, I think I'm happy with that for now, but I'll try again when we exhibit it next time and see how that works. And then even just I really didn't know how I was going to install these sculptures until yesterday. And then I think you just said the word, maybe they'll just snake out into the space. And I was like, oh right, yeah, great. So there's always that bit of like messing around. But I think these particular works are finished, but the exhibition format allows you to mess around with them. But what was I going to say? But this exhibition, I guess what it's trying to capture is a change in my practice, and I think with some of these sculptures I really have managed to like capture the smallest.
Parenthood.
Yeah, I think, and just that collaboration with parenthood as well, like collaborating with your own circumstances. And I guess that'll change as the kids get older, or I get, maybe I'll have to get a job that is more responsibility, and so I have less time to do work, or maybe I'll be able to spend more time on art. You don't know, and each of those bodies of work will be different. But this is definitely a serious shift in the way I think about making work. Actually, one thing I am doing is I'm going to work more with this idea of complaint. There's an organisation in, where are they? Thamesmead in London, called TACO. Tracy ain't coming out. I don't know why they're called that, but they're really good, and they've got this writing project that I'm going to take part in. So it'll end up being a performance, and I might try and do live, live streamed animation, because this stuff you can do motion tracked. So I could set up multiple cameras and have multiple characters chattering away to each other. So I'd still do like the idea of the old gods, or these figures that are left behind. But I'm trying to work out what they would really say to each other if they were characters.
So there's one piece that we haven't talked about at all, quite a discreet wee thing, a minor work, as you called it. I think it's really nicely. That's the form of it kind of evolved nearly as you got here, in terms of how it would be seen, whether it would be on a larger scale. But I think it works really, really well. is just this wee discreet thing in the corner.
Yeah, I think now that's another example where like it started off as a performance, and then I made a little video and just put it online. But actually, even on a computer screen, it looks quite jarring because all the footage is filmed on a phone, and I don't colour grade any of it. So they're all these different clips all jumbled up together. But actually, as soon as we realised we could put it on an iPad, it just made it totally work because that screen is exactly what those videos are meant to be shown on that size screen. And so it looks much better than it would look on a big screen. But that work is really, I made no work in the first year of my daughter's life in 2021 at all. But I carried on taking pictures and I carried on shooting video. So that's just me trying to edit together all of this video. And again, it's a bit like this work in lieu of the work where part of the video is me saying, oh, what I would have done with all this footage is made a video essay. But now I can't do that because I don't have any time. So I'm just going to put them all together. And it's really positing the idea that what is the minimum you can do to still think of yourself as an artist? And I figured that it was just noticing things, like being interested in things. And I think that's really hard to remember sometimes, because sometimes you're so frustrated that you aren't down at the studio or you don't have time to do this or that. But ultimately, you know, an artist's role in any given situation is often just to notice something that sparks their interest and that they can think about. And even if that only leads to like a photo on your phone or a conversation with your friend or, you know, like looking something up on the internet, that's still an act of production. That's still you making something new in the world. And yeah, so that was just the first time I really kind of grappled with that. So that started the rest of the thinking that led to all this show, really.
I think that's a good point to end on.
Yeah, that was nice. Well done.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And
yeah,
thanks a lot for being here and coming back and,
that's great.
and doing all this. It's been really interesting to see how I'm kind of, in a way, quite glad that it didn't pan out the way we intended,
Yeah.
you know, 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to keep this in, but I didn't get funding as well. So, you know, when you get funding, you have to say what you're going to do, and you kind of have to do it. Obviously, there's scope for change and stuff, but I couldn't have made the show, I don't think, if I'd got the funding to do the full version of this work. So, yeah, I'm glad as well.
Yeah,
it's been
it's
great.
good.
And it's just really nice to be back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are so great. So, yeah, thank you.
Is that a wrap?